So fellow Earthlings. This is Earthling 6455463728. And Korean kids make Korean parents sound like the absolute worst. I've listened to the No Chaser podcast. I've listened to Bobby Lee. I've listened to this famous artist from Facebook and their experiences as male Korean kids. Sounds absolutely horrible. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. Of course, I am Earthling, yada yada yada. Got a couple of degrees. I got a scholarship to pay for some of that. I've traveled quite a bit. Hopefully I can get to travel some more. I've done Army Reserves service for a number of years until I realized it really wasn't worth it. And I've done programming for a lot of different people, some work that I'm really proud of. So that's it for me. Anyway, Korean parents, oh my goodness. So first off, let me start with the No Chaser podcast, because this guy, David Ho, I guess he's guest starring for a period now. And he was that was his thing. He was saying that Korean parents are really the worst. And they were going around talking, everybody was talking about their experiences. There was David Ho, there was Timothy Chantarang Su, Timothy De La Ghetto, Nikki Blades, Ricky Shucks, and Nikki Blades had some stories. She had some stories about, I guess, being pulled out of school because she didn't arrange everything the way that her grandmother wanted it at home. So somebody came and got her from school and make sure that she did everything as she was supposed to. That's not really horrible. But she was talking about, for example, when they were getting, I guess, corporal punishment for whatever it might be, and one of her cousins was showing a little bit of disdain for the strokes that she was receiving, and they took her away to the back room, and she came back a little bit more scared, I suppose, which was supposed to be a good thing. But David Ho, he was basically saying that he recounted a couple of stories. One of them was that his parents didn't really seem to care too much for him. I don't know if this is just a male Korean thing, but there also is this problem in Korea, I think, with respect to domestic violence. So it's not necessarily just parents. I haven't really heard stories of Korean mothers doing something that was physically harmful to their kids. It might just be part of this drinking culture that Korea has. There's supposed to be a lot of drinking after work with your colleagues. But anyway, let me just get into the example. So David Ho was saying that, as one example, he saw on TV that this boy was getting about to be hit in a dramatization, and the narrator said, you call Child Welfare Services because you don't have to take this. So when he was going to get hit, he told his dad, I don't have to take this. I'm going to call Child Services. So his dad left the room, and he thought, whoa, okay, yeah, that's what's supposed to happen. His dad came back with a lead pipe and swung at him, he said. And when he ducked, his dad destroyed the plastic bin, I think, that was behind him with the lead pipe, and subsequently said, that is child abuse. So I guess there was no further threats to call Child Protective Services from him. He also mentioned that in terms of how much his parents seemed to love him, his dad had left some bricks out in the backyard, I think it was, and as a result, it was a renovation, I think, that they were doing, so there were no lights out there. So his dad tells him, go put out the garbage. He goes to put out the garbage, trips over the bricks in the yard because it's pitch black, he says. He says he can remember when his stomach hit the floor because he was this big, chubby kid. And all of his, forearms, you could see the bones, he said. He was just bleeding all over the place. So he comes back in and he says to his dad, why didn't you tell me there were bricks outside there? And his dad tells him, don't you have eyes? Why don't you open your eyes and see? So, I guess, his dad did not really, it seems, care too much about him, or wasn't too concerned as to his health and safety per se. Maybe he forgot that the lights were out. But and just in case, one might think, well, his dad didn't realize that the lights were out, and it was really his fault because, well, I think Nikki Blades was saying that she had turned the tables on her dad when she was old enough, and she was paying for his phone, and she told him, listen, I'm paying for this phone, so unless you want me to take away the phone, answer the phone when I call it. And she said her dad backed down because those are the rules that he kept, pounding into them, that you don't pay for any bills here, so you don't have any rights here. But David Ho was like, that's not what my father would have done. He would have just changed the rules so that he's always in the right. And I think that's probably what his father would have done. He was also recounting, I guess, a friend's story, where he said his friend didn't actually say anything, but I guess when his father hit him, he might have made a fist, and his father is like, are you going to hit me? So the friend says, no. But when the friend walks off, that's the last thing that he remembers. He woke up like a day later, maybe in the hospital or wherever, because his dad had hit him in the back of the head and knocked him out. So that was, And with respect to comedian Bobby Lee, I remember one of the things that he said was that, I guess, he and his brother were in their room, and his brother might have been playing a game that had special effects noises. And his father, I guess, was sleeping in another room, comes into the room, grabs the game from Bobby Lee's brother, and smashes it on top of his head. And, so not exactly too friendly. Now, there is this Korean American painter who was also telling about his issues with his parents. And I can't remember if it was him or Bobby Lee who were talking about this particular incident. But apparently, the two parents were holding on to each arm, and I guess it was an elevator or something. So they were on an elevator, and one wants the kid to come in the elevator, the other one wants the kid off the elevator. And as they're grappling for the kid, his father, whoever it was, his father, punches the mother in the mouth and then pulls the kid, I guess, off the elevator. So that's one memory. And it seemed to be kind of, like I said, Korea has a problem with domestic violence. It's something that is out there. And I guess with respect to the painter, can't remember the guy's name, sorry, but he's like 100 millionaire because he accepted Facebook stock instead of cash for doing a painting for them, and as a result of that, that's what he's worth, like hundreds of millions of dollars. Anyway, this guy, I believe, was saying how at some point in his childhood, his parents basically took him to the airport and sent him to live in Korea for a year without telling him why. So they didn't even tell him that they were going to send him to Korea. They just sent him to Korea. And it was really traumatic for him because he didn't understand what was happening at all. He was over there for, I think, around a year or more. And it was because they couldn't afford to take care of him in America. So they sent him to live with relatives over there, but they did not give him a warning. They did not sit him down, none of that stuff. And yeah, he seemed to have a really troubled experience with his father. But Bobby Lee and that painter and even David Ho all seem to have sided with their or are close with their fathers. I think that painter said his dad died recently or something like that. Oh yeah, I forgot one other David Ho story, because this is where he came down the side of his mother. I don't understand how he figured that his mother kind of she was the reason why his father was like that, because the example that he gave was just really, really lacking. But one story that he gave, he said that his mom came from, the rural area in Korea. So she spoke really, I guess you would say, backward Korean. Anyway, he was at home. He came home one day and he was crying by himself in his room. And his mom comes up to him and in his room, sat down next to him, and instead of consoling him, basically told him that only B words cry alone. And then she got up and left him. And he told her, hey, please don't tell my father. And then when she left the room, he could hear her telling his father what happened. And his father ran in and was like, why are you crying alone? So that, I've said it before, but it's really horrible that we treat men horribly and then expect them in turn to treat women well. I mean, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. But the example that he gave with his mom, where he was saying that his mother was the one for why his father was like that. Apparently his mother asked his father to buy a large container of vinegar to make kimchi, and his father didn't come back with a big enough one, and his mother complained about it. And this is why he thought that this was what instigated his father to swing lead pipes at him and beat him up so much that he wanted to call Child Protective Services. If the kimchi didn't taste good, whose fault was it going to be? If there wasn't enough, I'm sure the kimchi wasn't just for herself. And I'm sure it wouldn't kill his father to just go buy some more vinegar. So it's kimchi for the family, and she's complaining that she doesn't have enough to make the amount of kimchi that she wanted, that you, I'm sure, are going to eat anyway, and you find that she is the problem. I understand people nagging, but if you can improve how you think or act, then people wouldn't do that, I suppose. You could, anyway, it's a lot. But the thing about it is that you can't really put this blame per se specifically on the shoulders of Korean parents. One thing, once you're talking about people from a less developed country where life is not as easy, you're going to find that people are hard because life was hard. Korea is a relatively developed country, but I think people forget the fact that even for myself, honestly, I did not really grasp how bad the Korean War really was. And this is something that there are people who were young people, who were kids, that went through really, really horrific experiences in the Korean War. And all throughout that period after, when Korea was trying to, get to the point where it was going to do its Korean miracle, just like all the other miracles that other countries have done around the world. But Korea has been through a lot, and even though it is, I think it's supposed to be like an OECD country, one of these developed countries, that is fairly recently that has happened. It was a colony of Japan for a while, and it experienced, again, even before the Korean War, a lot of subjugation and a lot of bad experiences because of that colonization and because of the war. So it shouldn't really be too much of a surprise that Koreans fall in the same way that people from India or Pakistan, the way that they might deal with their kids, or the way that people from Africa might deal with their kids, or the people from South America. It's not. But of course, at the same time, I guess Ricky Shucks, he didn't really give too many stories himself, because he's like, I don't really have funny stories, which is like, the African American experience for him. He didn't think it was, I guess he didn't feel too much like sharing. He did share stuff about his dad. I don't know what their situation was, but the story that he shared was not anything physical. It was just like his father had a particular attitude, like, look at this guy over here kind of thing, and which was kind of amusing, really. But between the recent development of Korea, the still ongoing issues with respect to domestic violence, and the situation that women have in Korea, and even Japan for that matter. There was some university or a number of universities that recently came out and showed that they were not accepting women who were qualified based on whatever entry requirements. They didn't take them in, and they had this whole long history of doing that. So things are not really great in many places in the world where you would expect things to be better. Anyway, that's it for me. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, or do none of those things. The same way as you would like somebody to do for you if this was your channel. So have a good one. Peace.